You're nothing but a weight on our backs. My daughter Emily snapped at me on my birthday when I asked for a little assistance. That evening, I was thrown out of the home where I'd resided for years, giving them all I had. So, I locked their access to every one of my credit cards, voided their premium seats to Maui, and then I accomplished what they believed I couldn't. But that was merely the start of my strategy. Then I took an action that surprised even myself. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're tuning in from. The grocery list wrinkled in my grip like discarded vows. Emily, could you take me to the market? I need items for tonight's cookout. The words lingered in the sunny Boulder kitchen, morning rays pouring over messy counters where coffee cups lay forgotten like our talks. My daughter glanced up from her device, her gaze as icy as a Colorado blizzard. Are you kidding me right now? It's only a short drive. I invited Mike and Susan, maybe Tom. Dad, no. She rose, her chair grating against the floor. I'm not your driver. You're just a weight on our backs. You realize that. The statement struck like a slap. 68 years old, and my own child addressed me as if I were an unwelcome duty. Emily, it's my birthday. I simply wanted to prepare food for friends. Your birthday, she chuckled harshly and resentfully. You believe that makes you exceptional. You think that alters anything. Ryan emerged in the doorway, arms folded. What's the commotion about? Dad wants me to ferry him like a cab service. Emily hissed. For heaven's sake. Edward. Ryan's tone held that usual disdain. Can't you handle this on your own? We're not operating a nonprofit here. My fingers clenched the list. Beer, ribs, potatoes, briquettes. Basic items for a simple festivity. I've never demanded much. Haven't demanded much. Emily's pitch escalated. You reside in our home, consume our meals, use our services. All we do centers on caring for you. The kitchen grew quiet save for the fridge's buzz. Our home, the place I purchased for them, where I provided everything, seeking only a spot to dwell. Fine. I seized my jacket from the peg. I'll cope. Emily smacked her hand on the counter. Don't act the martyr. Dad, we all understand how this operates. I departed without further speech, abandoning the birthday note from my neighbor, Mrs. Anderson, sealed on the counter. The morning breeze nipped at my face as I drew out my phone. Digits firm despite the shake in my heart. Yellow taxi. Yes, I require a lift to Wilson's grocery. The cab showed up swiftly, the driver nodding courteously as I sank into the tattered vinyl seats. Out the window, I observed their house diminish, the white fence I'd coated last spring now resembling jail bars. Special event, the driver inquired, eyeing my list, birthday grill out. The phrase sounded empty. As we cruised through downtown Boulder, recollections surged uninvited. The day I'd transferred the title to Emily and Ryan, assuming I was safeguarding their tomorrow, the university fees I'd covered, the marriage I'd financed, the numerous occasions I'd opened my purse without pause. Each offering had been voluntary, delivered with affection. Wilson's grocery hummed with weekend buyers. I picked each product meticulously. Thick pork ribs, fresh potatoes in skins, top-grade briquettes. The clerk, a youthful guy with compassionate eyes, assisted with packing. Entertaining company, a handful of old pals. I settled with cash, notes I'd taken out earlier that week. The return cab journey passed in thoughtful hush. The driver aided with carrying sacks to the entrance, declining my bigger gratuity offer with a gesture and grin. Minor acts of goodwill from outsiders felt invaluable now. Indoors, the residence was oddly still. Emily and Ryan had vanished. likely to their chamber to grumble about the hassle of my presence. I unpacked systematically, placing ribs in the fridge, potatoes in a dish, briquettes near the rear door. The dining area table anticipated adornment. I retrieved my fine dishes, the set Laura and I got as wedding presents 45 years back, each item positioned with ritual, as though arranging a fitting table could reclaim honor to this occasion. Out the window, I spotted the yard barbecue poised. The steel top shone in the midday sun, awaiting use. As I ironed the table covering with cautious hands, a firmness grew in my core, a determination I hadn't sensed in ages. The bell would chime shortly. Mike and Susan would come with their relaxed chuckles and true kindness. For a brief time, I'd recall what it meant to be appreciated, to be accepted in my own area. I lingered at the window, viewing afternoon shades extend over the lawn. My hand balled at my side. The barbecue awaited. My companions would arrive. And afterward, matters would shift. The doorbell's ring drew me from my musings. I dried my hands on a cloth and opened to discover Mike and Susan there with warm grins and a wine bottle. "Happy birthday, you old codger." Mike patted my shoulder as Susan pecked my cheek, her scent a soft echo of finer days. "We thought we'd never arrive." Susan giggled. Traffic was brutal crossing town. Tom showed up soon after, toting a 12-pack and donning his typical denim shirt, set to char some meat. Edward. We shifted to the backyard, where Colorado's expansive sky arched boundlessly overhead. The barbecue ignited with a pleasing rush, flames leaping azure and amber. I set the ribs while Mike opened brews, the known routine seeming holy in a way. Recall when we did this weekly, Tom lounged in a patio chair, limbs extended. When we figured we'd endure eternally. "Speak for yourself," Susan jested. "I'm still intending to." Their mirth saturated the atmosphere like melody. This was my desire. Plain camaraderie, effortless chat, the ease of being comprehended. The ribs crackled, infusing the yard with lush, smoky aroma. "Will Emily and Ryan join?" Mike questioned, peering at the house. "I'll inquire." I cleaned my hands and entered, locating them in the lounge, engrossed in their devices. "Hey, you pair, my pals are present. Care to emerge?" And Emily glanced up, her look sour. "No thanks. Not keen on an elderly assembly." Ryan didn't even raise his gaze from his display. "Yeah, we'll skip the senior summit." Warmth climbed in my face. "They're fine folks. They'd enjoy meeting you." "I'm certain they would." Emily's tone oozed sarcasm. "But I have superior activities than feign interest in your pitiful little birthday bash." I went back to the yard, compelling a smile. My companions had overheard all via the ajar door. I saw it in their cautiously impartial looks, the manner they abruptly grew fascinated in their brew bottles. "Everything okay?" Susan asked softly. "Fine. They're occupied." I turned the ribs, fat sputtering on the grate. The recollection struck then, keen and acrid. 4 years passed. Ryan approached me with his venture scheme, a vague startup notion on software creation. I'd issued him a check for $18,000 without delay, trusting in his aspirations, even as details appeared hazy. The venture collapsed in 8 months. The funds evaporated like vapor. "These ribs appear ideal," Tom stated, evidently attempting to brighten the atmosphere. I presented them on my fine dishes, the identical ones I'd organized with such attention before. We dined in friendly quiet, the meal tasting like dust in my mouth despite their praises. "Well," Mike said at last, glancing at his timepiece, "we ought to depart soon. Susan's got her reading group tomorrow." "Of course," I stood, starting to gather plates. Allow me to escort you to the gate. They collected their items with the skilled swiftness of individuals used to uneasy departures. At the entrance, Susan clasped my hand. Thanks for a wonderful night. Edward. The ribs were superb. Happy birthday, buddy. Mike's grip lingered. Care for yourself. I accompanied them to the gate, observing their rear lights vanish into the Colorado twilight. The night air bore the odor of cooling briquettes and waning expectations. Birds nestled in branches with concluding tweets, the day formally concluding. Inside, I discovered Emily and Ryan awaiting in the lounge, arms crossed like arbitrators, ready to issue a ruling. The front entrance stood resolutely shut behind me, as if barricading the existence I was abandoning. Nice gathering, Emily remarked, her voice piercing with derision. Truly demonstrated how vital you are. Ryan grinned coldly and scheming. Yeah, Edward, truly remarkable attendees. I remained there, hands still reeking of smoke and letdown, sensing something perilous brewing in my core. The ajar door outlined the obscurity outside, offering prospects I hadn't ventured to envision prior to this night. The dining table still bore the remains of festivity, rumpled serviettes, vacant glasses, the specter of superior times. One tissue had dropped to the ground, overlooked and solitary. I shut the door with intentional caution, the snap resounding through the dwelling like a choice being finalized. The evening chill seeped through the shutting door as I entered the dimly illuminated lounge. Emily and Ryan stood like guardians, arms wrapped across their torsos, faces rigid in stern blame. The TV cast azure light over their stiff shapes. Really fine display you staged there, Emily commenced, her voice as sharp as winter gust. Ryan advanced, jaw tightened. What on earth were you considering? Edward bringing those aged idiots into our dwelling. They're my companions. My tone stayed stable, though something frigid lodged in my gut. Good individuals who wish to commemorate. This is our dwelling, Ryan interrupted, directing his digit like a blade. You dwell under our ceiling. You don't invite arbitrary folks whenever you desire. Emily nodded, eyes sparkling with what resembled contentment. We didn't consent to host your minor retiree club. I prepared, I tidied. They didn't disrupt anything. That's not the issue. Ryan's volume increased, bouncing off the walls. The issue is you don't decide here. You're a visitor in this dwelling, and visitors don't host events. The term visitor lingered in the air like haze. Visitor in the dwelling I'd acquired for them 3 years prior when they couldn't manage lease after Ryan lost his position. The dwelling where I'd inscribed my name on the loan documents. Trusting kin signified something. If you can't honor our guidelines, Emily stated, tightening her arms further, then perhaps you need to locate elsewhere to reside. The quiet extended among us, interrupted only by the far-off hum of the fridge and the gentle drone of nighttime TV. I regarded them both, my daughter and her spouse, and perceived outsiders in known visages. Fine, Emily blinked, obviously anticipating more debate. What? I said fine. I pivoted toward the stairs, palm clutching the railing. I'll pack. Ryan jeered behind me. Don't be theatrical, Edward. We're merely attempting to establish limits here. I ascended the steps without reply, each stride purposeful and gauged. My chamber, the guest space evidently, awaited at the hallway's end. I hauled my aged valise from the wardrobe, the hide grip smoothed by years of work journeys and kin holidays. Garments creased neatly into the case, hygiene items collected from the bath, the snapshot of Laura and me from our final milestone together, captured before the illness claimed her. My digits traced her grin as I enveloped it in a gentle top. The recollection hit me then, acute and undesired. Emily's nuptial day 7 years back. The invoice for the event had been enormous. $30,000 for blooms, cuisine, images, the lot. I'd drafted the payment without pause, viewing my daughter twirl in her ivory gown, trusting I was committing to joy. Worth each cent, I informed Laura that evening, both fatigued but beaming. Now Emily desired me departed for hosting pals for supper. I fastened the valise shut, the noise crisp in the serene room. My purse, bulging with the money I'd extracted for the birthday cookout. Vehicle keys. No, the vehicle was listed in both our titles. Another present, another link I'd created myself. Downstairs, Emily and Ryan had resumed the sofa, feigning TV viewing. Neither glanced up as I neared, valise wheels gliding softly over the timber floor. I placed my dwelling key on the low table with a soft tap. The metal captured the TV's azure shine for an instant before merging into shade. "Edward," Emily began, but I was already heading toward the door. "Where are you heading?" Ryan's tone bore a hint of what could have been doubt. I opened the front entrance, cool night breeze surging in to occupy the gap between us. Out. The door closed behind me with the same intentional caution I'd employed before, but this time I was on the opposite side. Valise in grasp, positioned on the veranda of a dwelling no longer my abode. The road extended into gloom, street lamps projecting pools of amber on vacant asphalt. Somewhere afar, a hound barked once and quieted. I took my initial stride from the dwelling, wheels of my valise commencing their rhythmic rumble on the cement. The night air savored of liberty and uncertainty equally. My footfalls resounded on the silent pavement as the dwelling vanished behind, engulfed by obscurity and span. The valise jolted over walkway fissures, each bump ascending through the grip into my limb like a prompt of what I'd abandoned. Boulder at night differed from day, gentler somehow, more lenient. Street lamps forged aisles of warmth in the chill Colorado air, and my exhalation formed tiny mists that vanished into the dark. The known heft of my purse pressed against my chest, holding sufficient funds to endure several weeks if cautious. As I proceeded, memories emerged unbidden. Emily at 19, weeping in my kitchen after her initial heartbreak. I'd embraced her as she sobbed, vowing things would improve, that she merited someone who'd treat her with esteem. The irony wasn't overlooked now. The walkway extended forward, guiding toward the business area, where I knew a humble inn existed. My limbs, unused to such prolonged walking, already throbbed with the strain, but something in the bodily unease felt purifying. Each step a minor rebellion against years of silent compliance. A vehicle passed, beams briefly lighting my route before vanishing around a bend. The driver likely pondered the elderly man strolling solo with a valise, but I experienced no disgrace. If anything, I felt more resolute than in months. I passed the primary school where Emily had gone to first grade, its play area gear casting odd shades in the moonlight. I recalled fetching her here, her tiny palm in mine, as she prattled about her day. When had that vibrant, affectionate kid become the frigid woman who'd commanded me from my own abode? The memory of her mother's burial struck me like a blow. Emily, shattered and adrift, leaning on me as soil fell on Laura's coffin. I'd pledged to care for her, to ensure she never felt isolated or forsaken. For 3 years after Laura's passing, I'd been Emily's support, aiding her through sorrow, backing her in counseling, being there whenever required. And this was the conclusion, with dwelling keys on a low table and a valise rolling down a vacant road. The neon marker of the Oak Inn buzzed gently afar, its crimson letters announcing vacancy like an invitation. My pace hastened a bit, though whether from eagerness or weariness, I couldn't discern. The evening attendant, a young lady with weary eyes and a sincere grin, registered me without bias. Room 14, peaceful location in the rear. The key was traditional metal, weighty in my palm. Actual keys for actual doors. Something sturdy and truthful about that. Room 14 smelled of oak cleanser and dim cigarette haze. A lone bed with a patterned blanket. A tiny table with 2 seats. A bath scarcely big enough to pivot in. It wasn't grand, but it was mine for the night. I unpacked methodically, suspending shirts in the slim closet, organizing hygiene items on the bath counter. The snapshot of Laura went on the bedside stand, her grin accompanying me in the unfamiliar space. When all was arranged, I reclined on the bed, clothed, hands clasped behind my head, gazing at the ceiling. Watermarks shaped abstract designs above, and somewhere in the partitions, conduits gurgled softly under the broad Colorado sky, speckled with stars like forsaken aspirations. I assembled the years of silent giving, now kindling this silent blaze within. Emily's university fees, $50,000. Ryan's vehicle when he lost his marketing role, $20,000. The initial payment on their first flat, $15,000. Nuptial expenses, urgent loans, holiday presents, birthday payments. How much had I bestowed over the years? How much of myself had I infused into their existences, trusting that affection was gauged in currency and forfeiture? My respiration stabilized as something solidified in my core. Not rage. Rage was too fervent, too scattered. This was cooler, more intentional. A silent assurance that I was finished being viewed as a weight by folks who'd constructed their lives on my liberality. The ceiling gazed back, providing no solutions, but somehow affirming what I already grasped. Tomorrow would differ. Tomorrow I would cease being the man who gave all and sought nothing. Tomorrow I would commence being the man who comprehended his own value. Morning glow seeped through the slim inn drapes like a tender arousal, casting amber stripes over the worn rug. I extended in the narrow bed, astonished by how soundly I'd slumbered, superior to months past. Despite the strange environs, something had altered overnight, as if departing that dwelling had removed a load I'd become so habituated to bearing that I'd overlooked what liberty felt like. I attired swiftly, hands stable as I fastened my shirt. The mirror over the dresser mirrored a man who appeared altered from the one who arrived last night. Same visage, same silvering hair, but something in the gaze had shifted. Intent, resolve. The room telephone rested on the bedside stand, dark and solid with actual buttons. I called the cab firm, articulating clearly into the handset. Yes, Oak Inn. I need transport to Central Bank on Elm Street. 15 minutes, came the response. Outside, Boulder was rousing. The cab arrived punctually, driver nodding as I settled in the rear. Through the pane, I observed the town animate, cafes unlocking, folks walking pets, kids awaiting school transports, regular morning cadences of a society I'd been part of for decades, but somehow never truly integrated. Business at the bank, the driver queried, glancing in the mirror, managing some profiles. The bank's stone foyer echoed with my footfalls. Overhead lights droned, casting all in harsh, truthful illumination. The morning cashier, a mature woman with compassionate eyes behind thin glasses, grinned as I neared. Good morning. How may I assist? I need to restrict access to my credit cards for certain approved users. She halted, digits poised over her board. Are the cards misplaced or taken? No. I wish to revoke access rights for two individuals. My daughter Emily Hayes and her husband Ryan Hayes. Her brows lifted a tad. Sir, that's rather uncommon. Are you sure family money disputes can be complex? I'm sure. My voice showed no wavering. They no longer possess my approval to utilize my accounts. The cashier nodded gradually. Professional reserve prevailing. I'll require ID and confirm your account info. Documents shuffled over the counter. Papers to endorse. Permissions to withdraw. Signatures to observe. Each stroke felt like another bond snapping. As structures blurred during my cab trip here, a feeling of release had enveloped me, keener than the sunlight penetrating the glass, signifying the close of endless yields. The recollection emerged as I endorsed the last paper. Just 3 months prior, Emily had phoned in tears about desiring to remodel their kitchen. The quote was $15,000. I sent the funds that same day. No inquiries, trusting that committing to their abode was committing to our kin's tomorrow. Their kitchen, their abode, their tomorrow, not ours, never ours. The alterations will activate instantly, the cashier clarified, slipping the documents into a file. All cards connected to your accounts will demand your direct approval for future use. Perfect. I exited outside, the morning air fresh and brimming with potential. Another cab awaited at the curb. I'd phoned ahead, plotting each move with fresh lucidity. The driver opened the door, and I settled into the known vinyl seat. Back to Oak Inn. Yes. As the bank faded in the rear pane, I sensed something absent for years, the contentment of deciding solely for myself. No discussion, no remorse, no doubting, just pristine, resolute action. The cab eased from the curb, joining midday flow. In my pocket, my phone started vibrating. Once, twice, thrice. I didn't need to check to identify the caller. The phone hummed against my leg like a furious insect as the cab maneuvered through downtown traffic. I extracted it from my pocket, Emily's name blinking on the display with each persistent chime. The driver eyed the mirror, but uttered nothing. Focusing on the path ahead, I swiped to respond. "What in the world did you do?" Emily's voice burst through the speaker before I could greet. "My card was declined at Bloomingdale's. Do you grasp how mortifying that was?" "Hello to you as well. Emily, don't you dare adopt that attitude with me. I was purchasing shoes for a job talk, and the clerk had to shred my card there before everyone." The cab struck a bump, jostling me against the aged seat. Through the pane, Boulder's Central Avenue rolled by, the same stores where Emily had pulled me innumerable times. Credit card ready, buying items she deemed essentials. "How does it feel?" I queried, voice firm as mountain rock. How does what feel being shamed by my own dad? Being a weight, being a disgrace. I allowed the words to absorb. "Yesterday you informed me I was merely a weight on your backs. Today you're phoning because you can't purchase footwear with my funds." Quiet stretched over the line. The cab driver feigned disinterest, but I noticed his gaze in the mirror. He'd overheard sufficient kin turmoil in his rear to identify the noise of bonds breaking. "This is distinct," Emily's voice resumed, elevated now, tinged with what might have been alarm. "You can't simply sever us. We have costs, duties." So did I. For 25 years, the recollection flashed. Emily at 26, calling from a shop in Denver, where she'd discovered the ideal gown for some benefit event. $400 for one night. I'd supplied her my card digits over the line without delay, trusting her joy warranted any cost. "Dad, you're being absurd. This isn't how kin functions." You're correct. I observed a mom pushing a pram past a transit halt, her child pointing thrilled at a passing canine. Simple delight, uncomplicated by deceit or remorse. Kin doesn't function by labeling each other weights. Kin doesn't function by ejecting folks from their abodes for hosting pals. We didn't eject you. You opted to depart, after you instructed me to find elsewhere to reside. Her voice fractured a bit. That's not... We were frustrated. You can't... I can... The words felt alien in my mouth. When was the last occasion I'd uttered them to her? I can decide about my own funds. Appears like a weight you'll bear now. I concluded the call with a mild press, the phone silencing in my grasp. The cab persisted its steady advance through town, passing the archive where I'd taken Emily for tail hour 35 years back, the green where she'd mastered bicycling with my palm on her back for stability. As her voice dissolved into noise, the path extended ahead like a route to fresh limits, each jolt echoing the conclusiveness of my statements. Everything fine there, the driver asked, improving by the moment. The Oak Inn sign emerged, its neon characters vivid against the Colorado sky. But as we neared, I spotted a form standing near the entry. Tall, wide-shouldered, arms folded in a stance I knew too well. The cab decelerated, and my phone stayed mercifully mute in my hand. Someone awaited me. The cab halted in the pebble lot, afternoon shades extending long over the blacktop. Through the windscreen, I could view him plainly now, Ryan pacing to and fro under the flickering Oak Inn sign like a confined beast, his shoulders tense, hands balled at his sides, and even from afar, I could perceive the fury emanating from every contour of his frame. "That'll be $14, the driver stated, but his gaze fixed on Ryan's restless form. I gave him 20, pocketing the key card. "Keep the change." As I exited the cab, Ryan noticed me at once. He strode over the lot with rapid, hostile strides, his face reddened with wrath. "Edward, what the devil do you think you're doing?" I shut the car door calmly, confronting him as he approached. The afternoon air carried the aroma of dust and far pines, a tranquil opposition to the tempest forming in his eyes. "Ryan, what brings you here? Don't play dumb with me." He was near enough now that I could see the veins protruding in his neck. "Alice's card got rejected. Our flight booking just got annulled. You think you can just... I think I can decide about my own funds." My voice remained even, though my pulse accelerated. Revolutionary idea, I know. Ryan's hands curled into fists, sleeves bunching like wound springs. In that charged pause, as pebbles crunched underfoot, memories rose of the advances I'd offered without query. Like when Ryan's venture associate swindled $35,000, leaving him insolvent and frantic. I'd written the payment the same day he phoned. No inquiries. Trusting kin meant covering each other's errors. "You senile old idiot," Ryan growled, advancing closer. "You're going to rectify this immediately." Or what I retreated a step. Not from dread, but to keep space. Ryan lunged, grasping for my shirt neck, but before his digits could connect, the cab driver was abruptly there, interposing with the firm presence of one who'd managed trouble before. "Hey now." The driver's tone carried quiet command. "That's sufficient." Ryan halted mid-grasp, startled by the interference. "This is none of your concern." This gentleman paid his fare politely and treated me with respect, the driver said, not yielding despite being shorter than Ryan. "You want to swing fists, do it elsewhere. I won't watch you assault a decent man." The clash balanced on a blade's edge. Ryan's face cycled through wrath, bewilderment, and what might have been embarrassment. Three strangers in an inn lot, two shielding each other from the third. This isn't finished. Edward, Ryan spat. But he was already retreating. Not by far. He marched back to his truck, motor roaring to life with needless force. Pebbles sprayed as he sped out of the lot, the sound of his exit echoing off the inn's aged walls. I turned to the cab driver, who was adjusting his coat as if nothing odd occurred. "Thank you. That was unforeseen kindness." He shrugged, true warmth in his lined face. "A man can't watch bullies operate. Care for yourself." The cab departed with a soft hum, leaving me solitary in the abrupt quiet. I walked toward my room, keycard firm in my hand, despite the rush still flowing through my veins. The door lock chimed softly, green light blinking. Welcome. As I turned the key in the lock, a dim motor rumble faded afar, Ryan's truck vanishing into whatever thwarted withdrawal awaited him. The door opened to reveal my humble refuge, unaltered from how I'd left it that morning. But something had altered in me. Confronting Ryan, having a stranger defend my honor, watching my son-in-law withdraw like a beaten playground tyrant. It all hardened into something tougher and more assured than simple rage. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing me into the serene space where my true plans could finally form. Sunlight stabbed through the inn blinds like golden darts, painting stripes over the faded rug, and drawing me from the deepest, most tranquil sleep I'd had in years. Yesterday's clash with Ryan had left me oddly invigorated rather than exhausted, as if finally holding firm had unlocked stores of strength I'd forgotten. I bathed and dressed with purposeful care, selecting my finest casual top and pants. Today demanded a certain poise, a self-presentation that mirrored the gravity of my aims. The man in the bath mirror appeared older than his years, but bore himself with renewed intent. The transit stop sat 4 blocks from the inn, indicated by a plain metal sign and a small timber bench. Boulder's public conveyance wasn't vast, but it would convey me where needed. As I waited, observing early workers rush past with coffee vessels and purpose, I felt no haste. Time was finally mine. The bus arrived with a soft sigh of air stops, driver nodding as I boarded. Through the pane, Colorado's undulating hills reached toward distant peaks, the terrain unchanged by human turmoil. The health bills I'd covered just last month flashed in my mind. Ryan's ER trip after a weekend skiing mishap, $1,000 that appeared on my credit statement without alert or reason. Downtown legal zone. I told the driver when he asked my goal. Big day ahead. You could say that. The law firm of Hayes Turner and Partners occupied the 3rd floor of a historic stone building on Pine Avenue. The front desk lady, a professional woman with silvering hair and kind eyes, booked me right away when I explained my requirements. "Mr. Hayes can meet you now," she said, guiding me down a corridor lined with certificates and photos of Boulder's legal past. Robert Hayes was younger than anticipated, perhaps 50, with a meticulous focus that came from managing people's ultimate desires. His office smelled of hide and aged volumes, wood walls creating a mood of grave affairs. "Mr. Thompson, I understand you'd like to amend your will, completely overhaul it." I settled into the client seat, sensing the burden of the choice. "I want to create a benevolent trust, instead of bequeathing all to my kin." Hayes's brows rose a little, but his look stayed professional. "That's absolutely your prerogative. Are there particular causes you envision groups that aid elders who've been forsaken by their kin? Folks who need dignity restored?" For the next 90 minutes, we labored through the particulars. Hayes explained choices, outcomes, legal mandates, with each provision revised under the drone of overhead lights. A burden lifted, replacing years of silent tolerance with intentional steps forward. "This is notably courageous," Hayes said as I signed the concluding documents. "Most struggle to enact changes this major, especially concerning kin. Most haven't been labeled a weight by their own daughter." The pen scraped over official sheet, like etching new roots. Each endorsement felt like another portal closing on my former life and opening to something purer, more truthful. "The changes activate immediately," Hayes clarified, sliding duplicates into a brown envelope. "Your holdings will be maintained in trust, allocated per your directions upon your demise. Your kin will get notice if named in prior editions." Perfect. I shook his hand, valuing the strong clasp and direct gaze. Lawyers, I'd learned, handled kin turmoil as much as legal rules. Hayes had witnessed enough acrid inheritance conflicts to recognize true resolve. Descending the office steps, I felt lighter than in decades. The afternoon sun depicted all in sharp detail. Shops, passing vehicles, people pursuing their routine days, unaware that among them an elderly man had just reclaimed his existence. My phone chimed gently in my pocket, a noise I'd linked with fresh issues. I pulled it out, squinting at the display in the bright Colorado sunlight. The alert showed a schedule prompt, something I'd set and forgotten. It was a reminder to phone my sister in California, a journey I'd delayed for years to prioritize Emily's endless demands. Now, it felt like a vow to myself, a move toward reconnecting with kin who truly valued me. My thumb lingered over the screen as the implications dawned. There was still more to accomplish. The lively Boulder walkway welcomed me back into the flow of daily life as I exited Hayes's law firm. The endorsed papers rested securely in my coat pocket. Their heft, both emblematic and actual, the future I'd built for decades for Emily and Ryan, had just been rerouted to strangers who'd cherish the offering. A city bus sighed to a halt at the corner, riders boarding with the patient skill of small-town transit users. I climbed aboard, depositing exact coins into the box and finding a seat near the pane where Colorado's vast terrain extended beyond the glass. As the bus departed the legal area, my eye caught a journey ad on a shop window. Untouched shores, swaying coconuts, the vow of island haven. The image sparked a memory so acute it felt like a strike. 4 weeks prior, I'd reserved that Maui getaway. Premium flights for us three, sea view room at the Lux Resort, vehicle upgrade. A festivity of what I'd innocently trusted was kin harmony. $30,000 billed to my elite card without rethink, picturing Emily and Ryan's expressions when I surprised them with the printed proofs. A kin excursion, I told myself, to mend old scars and forge new recollections. The irony tasted sour now. Back in my in-room, I extracted my phone and launched the airline program. The booking appeared promptly. Thompson party of 3, leaving August 10th, returning August 17th. Elite seats with added space, priority entry, free bubbly service. I pressed the annul button. "Sure you want to annul this booking?" The screen asked. "Fees may apply." My thumb paused for precisely 1 second before affirming. The lodging reservation followed. 8 nights in Haven, now diminished to a proof email marked voided in scarlet letters. As proofs accumulated on the display amid the soft drone of the cooler, a silent contentment flourished, rooting deeper than the regrets I'd borne for years. Each voided booking felt like another restraint dropping, another choice made purely for my serenity. The phone's list scrolled past scores of names before finding the desired one. Mike Harrison, my longest companion, and one of the few who'd seen last night's shame directly. His number connected immediately. "Edward, how are you managing after yesterday?" "Better than hoped, truly." "Mike, free for coffee this afternoon. Something I need to share." Of course, the regular spot. Brewster's Diner on 4th Street. 3 hours suit you. Perfect. See you there. I ended the call and pocketed the device. Glancing at the bedside timer, 60 minutes until our meet. Sufficient time to digest the morning's choices, to ready for the talk that would mark another step from the man I'd been toward the person I was evolving. The annul emails had ceased alerting, leaving the room in welcome silence. Outside, Boulder continued its leisurely tempo, unaware that in room 14 of the Oak Inn, a man was methodically dismantling every link he'd built to ungrateful offspring. I adjusted my collar and checked my image in the bath mirror. The face staring back still was Edward Thompson's, but the eyes held something fresh, a clarity from finally grasping the distinction between affection and enabling, between kin devotion and self-esteem. The clock displayed 2:00, time to meet the sole person from yesterday's assembly who'd seemed truly glad to see me. The brass grip of Brewster's Diner felt solid and inviting as I pushed open the door. Afternoon sunlight yielding to the warm golden shine of vintage bulbs and bare brick, the scent of fresh milled coffee and baking treats enveloped me like an old pal's hug, a stark difference to the barren efficiency of the law firm and the solitary quiet of my in-room. Mike was there already, standing from a side table with the same sincere grin that had made him fine company at yesterday's fiasco of a birthday event. His clasp was strong, his gaze bearing the concern from decades of bond. "Edward, my pal, you look—" He paused, examining my face, altered, tougher somehow. Amusing how a sound night's rest and some tough choices can shift a man's view. We proceeded to the counter where a server with ink-marked fingers and kind eyes took our requests. Black coffee for Mike, a latte for me. A treat I seldom permitted myself when Emily always monitored my expenditures like a predator watching quarry. Settled at our table with steaming vessels between, Mike leaned ahead with the patient focus of one who'd seen enough life upheavals to know when a pal needed to speak. "So tell me what occurred after we departed last night." Susan was concerned. She heard voices inside when we bid farewell. The words spilled like coffee from a torn sack. I described the clash in the lounge, Emily's cold rejection of our visitors, Ryan's claim of control over their dwelling. Mike's look darkened as I recounted the key on the low table, the valise rolling down dark roads, the odd piece I'd found in that narrow inn-bed. "They actually expelled you." Mike's tone carried incredulity. "On your birthday, after labeling me a weight yes." "Good Lord. Edward, I knew they appeared distant recently, but that's—" He shook his head. "That's inexcusable." I proceeded with the morning's happenings. The blocked cards, Emily's enraged call, Ryan's attempted bullying in the lot. As vapor curled from the vessel, his words mirrored my inner change, turning the pain of loss into a symbol of reclaimed power amid the afternoon glow. And then this morning, I overhauled my will. All goes to benevolence now. Mike's coffee vessel halted midway to his lips. All, a fund for elders forsaken by kin, folks who grasp what it means to have their affection used against them. The quiet extended between us, broken only by the soft rattle of dishes and the low hum of other talks. Mike placed his vessel with intentional care, studying my face as if viewing me clearly first time. "You know, Edward, good for you." His voice bore a certainty that surprised us both. "I've observed Emily and Ryan treat you like a mobile bank for years. We all have, but none knew how to speak without intruding. You noticed it too, of course. We noticed last night at supper. How she rolled her eyes when you spoke of your yard. How Ryan kept eyeing his device like he had better places at your own birthday event. For pity's sake." The recollection rose. Emily's bored look as I described the veggies I'd nurtured, Ryan's dismissive huff when I mentioned hoping to visit my sister in California next month. Details I'd noted but ignored, filing under kin interactions rather than seeing as signs of deeper disrespect. I keep pondering when it began. I said, when I ceased being their dad and became their money source. Probably gradual. People don't awaken one morning and choose cruelty. They slip into it one minor yield at a time. Mike reached over the table, his lined hand briefly covering mine. But you halted the slip. That takes courage. My phone started ringing, the sound slicing our talk like a siren. Emily's name flashed on the display. Her image, a smiling shot from last holiday that now seemed like proof from a scene. Mike glanced at the device, then my face, going to respond. I stared at the screen, watching it throb with each ring, knowing whatever Emily said would only affirm the correctness of every choice since leaving that dwelling. The diner continued its gentle cadence around us, unaware that at table 8, a man chose between past and future, with each unanswered chime. The phone's persistent ring cut through our conversation like a knife through fabric, Emily's name throbbing urgently on the screen as nearby talks briefly hushed. Mike raised his brows, waiting my action. I swiped to answer and deliberately switched to speaker, placing the phone on the wooden table between our coffee vessels. Dad, have you totally lost it? Emily's voice erupted from the small speaker, attracting looks from adjacent tables. Ryan told me about your little outburst at that cheap inn. Good afternoon to you too. Emily, don't dare take that tone. I just received emails, annul notices for our Maui trip, $30,000 wasted because you're having some elderly crisis. Mike's eyes widened as Emily's anger filled the small diner. Other customers stopped feigning disinterest, their chats fading as this kin drama unfolded live. The trip was annulled because the payer decided he didn't want a holiday with folks who call him a wait. This is mad. You can't just... Ryan thinks we should commit you, declare mentally unfit. You're obviously not rational. As her voice bounced off walls, drawing stares from nearby tables, a surge of confirmation rushed through me, keener than the vapor from forgotten vessels. The memory flashed. Last year's kin voyage to Hawaii, another surprise I'd funded while Emily complained the whole week about cuisine, climate, the outings I'd planned carefully. Actually, Emily, I'm thinking clearer than in years. You're ruining our kin. How to explain this to others? How to pay for... You're to pay like every adult, with your funds, from your work, using your resources. The silence from the speaker lasted precisely 4 seconds before Emily's voice returned, higher and more frantic. You can't do this. We have duties. Ryan's venture isn't my issue. Your buying habits aren't my issue. Your failure to live within means isn't my issue. Each word emerged calm and measured, carrying years of suppressed irritation. I'm done being your personal fund. Dad, please, you're frightening me. This isn't you. You're right. The old me would have apologized now, would have sent money to fix your created crisis, would have pleaded forgiveness for daring to expect basic respect from my daughter. Mike reached over, squeezing my free hand in support, but that man is gone. Emily, the man who reared you, who forfeited all for your joy, who trusted kin meant something. You ended him the night you expelled him from his own dwelling. What you're speaking to now is what's remains, and what's remains has decided he's finished. You're my dad. You can't abandon. Watch me. I concluded the call with a gentle tap, Emily's objections cutting mid-phrase. The diner fell utterly silent for a beat before something unforeseen occurred. Someone began applauding, It started with the aged lady at the corner table, her lined hands uniting in slow, purposeful claps. Then the executive near the pane joined. The young mom with the pram, the university student with his computer. Within moments, the whole diner applauded, not derisively, but with true backing, as if they'd witnessed something uncommon and essential. Some nodded knowingly, others grinned with recognition from their own ungrateful kin experiences. "Well done," Mike said quietly, his hands joining the applause. "Superbly done." The clapping diminished slowly, leaving a warm hum of chat and the soft clink of vessels returning to dishes. I lifted my latte, surprised my hands were fully steady, despite the rush still in my veins. Outside, a siren howled afar, growing fainter as it moved from downtown. The sound blended with the gentle murmur of strangers become witnesses to my release, their voices forming a harmony of ordinary life around extraordinary shifts. I sipped my cooling coffee and smiled. The echo of applause trailed as I rose from the table, shaking Mike's hand with gratitude from knowing someone truly sees you. "Thanks for hearing, for all." "Anytime, pal and Edward, I'm proud." The following month unfolded like pages in a book I'd never dared read. Within 10 days, I'd contacted Lisa Johnson, Boulder's most esteemed agent, a woman whose assurance and direct manner reminded me of the person I was becoming. "I want something wholly mine," I told her as we drove leafy areas, something with room to respire. The home she showed on Ridge Road was ideal, a modest single story with broad panes overlooking the Rocky Mountains, a kitchen for one who enjoyed cooking, and a front veranda catching dawn and dusk. The prior owners maintained it fondly, leaving fresh paint scent and potential. "It has solid structure," Lisa said as I signed the buy contract, like its new owner. Moving day arrived with the crisp Colorado morning that made all seem feasible. My items from the inn fit one carload: attire, hygiene, Laura's snapshot, and the brown envelope with my new will. All else I'd learned was needless burden. With each mile under the vast sky, where evergreens whispered renewal secrets, obligation chains dissolved, leaving space for breaths long forgotten. I drove to nearby lakes, hiked trails I'd promised to explore. Found solitude felt like liberty, not isolation. My phone buzzed sporadically with messages from Emily and Ryan. Apologies seeming calculated. Pleas about home payments and venture costs. Cruelty accusations in obligation language. I read once and deleted promptly, feeling only relief their crises weren't mine. The message from Ryan was especially pitiful. "Edward, come on. We said unmeant things. Emily misses you. I miss you. Can't we resolve like kin?" Kin. The word lost power to guilt me. Instead, I spent days exploring freedom, the market buying what I wanted, the tool store selecting for my projects, the bookshop purchasing novels meant to read. Finally having mind space for stories not dominated by others' crises. 4 weeks into July, I stood on my new veranda, watching sun set behind mountains, a travel pamphlet fluttering in hand. England, Scotland, places dreamed but never prioritized because Emily had immediate needs for my assets. The pamphlet pages turned like new sections, each spot representing choices for joy, not duty. The evening gust carried wildflower scent and potential, rustling through evergreens like quiet applause. Behind, my home waited with lights in panes and supper on stove, a life sized for one man who'd learned alone versus lonely. Tomorrow perhaps call a travel aid. Next week, maybe that art class advertised at the center. The future extended, free of guilt or exhausting math of pleasing ungrateful people. For first time in decades, my time was entirely mine. As dark settled over mountains and stars emerged in vast Colorado sky, I folded the pamphlet and tucked into shirt pocket near heart. The night quiet, except gentle wind sigh through trees and distant owl call claiming territory. I had claimed mine too. If you enjoyed this tale, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next tale, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.